Okay, Ned Smith here to talk to you about wrists. I'm going to talk to you about this, 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 and this. The first thing I was showing you was neutral. The other things I showed you were compression and hyperextensions. The closer you can stay to your neutrals, the longer your lists. I want to talk to you today about lists. And the list I want to talk to you about is neutral, compression, and hyperextension, and how they can affect your wrists. Okay. So let's get into this. Wrists are super complicated. They're wrapped up in a tendon sheath right around here. Your finger tendons go through them, through the tendon sheath, and down in my hi-hat is still playing with my foot. The tendon sheath, okay. And then inside your wrist, you have these little wrist bones that are like flying saucers floating, and you can hurt them, and you can hurt these tendons. So we're going to talk about that by talking about the list of compression, neutral, and hyperextension. Compression, neutral, and hyperextension. Okay, so let's get into it. So this is a wrist, and that's as deep as we're going to go into the anatomy of the wrist, because what do I know beyond that? I don't know the anatomy of a wrist like I know the anatomy of a drumstick. Okay, so our tendon sheath goes around our wrist, and if we put pressure on it like this, up and down, but especially smacking at the top of a lift like this, the finger tendons push hard on it. And that causes friction, and friction causes heat, and by heat I mean swelling. And when swelling starts in your tendons, that's called tendonitis. And as your finger tendons going through here get swollen, and as your tendon sheath swells, they rub harder on each other, even if you don't go back that far. You have tendonitis, and it's a hard thing to kick. I had the bad experience of tendonitis for a couple of decades. Less and less as I figured out what to do about it, and things are going very well right now. But I don't want to go off on a tangent on that, other than stay safe, use your neutrals. So this is a hyperextension up here, down here, where you're stretching this part to what's called its end range, as far as it'll go. And this is a hyperextension on our finger tendons this way. And if we smash our tendons through the tendon sheath like this is called a compression in here. And those little flying saucers get crushed too a little. But when we do kind of a combo thing where we play with our hands in this way, this is the German grip, but you can do this to your hands in any grip. So I'm hyperextending across my thumbs over here and compressing by my pinky back here in my wrist. When you do this, and this is super common, you'll see tons of drummers doing this, it puts friction on those. Not only are you hyperextending over here and compressing over here, but you're putting friction on those flying saucers and your wrist bones right in here. And so as you rub, you're gradually taking cartilage off of those by hyperextending and crushing them like this. And they'll wear out, and then you'll start having them the bone rubbing on other cartilage and wearing it down. Not necessary. Not necessary, because instead of using hyperextensions and compressions in your drumming, you can use something more akin to neutrals where there's no tension and pressure. So when you make contact with the drum, say you're in the German grip, you should have a nice flat forearm like this, and your hand, and it may be shaped differently, but for most people, when you're in neutral, the left to right neutral with the German forearm position, your hand will be shaped in a Y shape coming from your forearm. Let me show you from here. Let's get it right. Oh, the shadow's kind of, I don't know if I can get a good one on this. Should we try another camera? Let's see. Can I get a good one here? See that Y? I shouldn't look at the screen. Okay. Kind of makes a Y shape right there. And that's most people's neutral. All right. Now let's get into the different forearm positions and how to stay safe in them and stay in a neutral. So, German, just move your hand up and down in the German like this and move it bigger and bigger until you start feeling a little tension. Be really sensitive to the tension. You want to be oversensitive to it. And then move back into smaller motions till you don't feel any tension anymore. And that's like a nice big neutral area you have in the German grip. Some people have a bigger one. But when I make contact with the drum, I like to not go beyond that, because then I go beyond this flat hand, even though it's neutral, because I lose some of my leverage to bring my hand back up. Great drummers do go past this. Great technique-oriented drummers do go past this. So I don't, because I'm afraid of stretching these tendons, because I play much harder than the people I'm thinking of. And so I don't want to stretch these tendons, because when you're playing hard or you're playing fast, there's a lot more tension on them, and it's much less like neutral. It's more like this. Okay. So this is one to watch out for. You watch out for it in the French grip too. I'm doing it here. Same thing in the French grip. Hyperextension, compression. And having this be the bottom of your stroke. A lot of people do that. They're like hyperextended when they make contact to the drum. You want to get down here in neutral with those Ys. That Y shape down here, which is hard to see. Sorry about that. And then you can make your small wrist movements in the French grip, because that's the one we'll do next. In the French grip, you have a tiny range of motion from end range to end range. German, you have the biggest end range to end range motion. Sorry, I'm so deadly serious about this. There's just nothing to joke around about with it. And then in the American grip, you have like a medium-sized range of motion in your wrist. So that means you have a medium-sized neutral, a very small neutral here. Mine is like this much. And then a bigger neutral in German. Okay. That's it. Neutral, compression, hyperextension in German, French, and American grips. All right. Think about that and really pay attention to it. And the way to do it is, when you're practicing, look at your hands, not the tips of your sticks. Okay. Oh, would you like to know what's in the next lesson? It's a secret.